Part 31. Biological Phi Control. Coherence Restoration as Physical Therapy. Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Mohammed Layiq Sediqi, the father of Holophase. Remember the language we are learning. There is one field, phi, the holophase, one continuous cyclic movement from which all of reality unfolds. When phi begins to change, its first derivatives appear, and with them, the three dimensions show themselves at once: time as omega, space as k, and motion as v, built from both. Every higher derivative is a finer question about how phi changes, and each one casts three shadows together: a time shadow, a space shadow, and the motion shadow. These echoes mix and weave into one another, forming the patterns we call fields, particles, bodies, thoughts, and worlds. In this picture, everything that exists is a living tapestry of phi, endlessly echoing through its derivatives and their dimensional shadows. Today, we listen to just one of those echoes. The room you enter now is quiet, clean, and imbued with a palpable sense of gravity. This is the therapeutic biocontrol lab. But we are not entering a new domain. We are entering the same field we have always been in, now viewed through the lens of pathology and healing. The petri dish of arrhythmic cardiomyocytes, the calibrated headset for tACS, these are not exotic tools probing a mysterious biology. They are instruments for measuring and manipulating the phi field as it manifests in living tissue. In the absolute framework of holophase, a disease state, whether cardiac arrhythmia, epileptic seizure, or depressive dysregulation, is not a biological problem separate from physics. It is a specific class of incoherent phi patterns in a highly complex, self-maintaining phi system. Healing, therefore, is not magic. It is applied phi dynamics. Your new role is that of the coherence restoration engineer. You are learning to apply the derived principles of phi dynamics, the same principles governing crystals, lasers, and networks, to diagnose and correct pathological incoherence in living phi systems. The caution is not because we are entering sacred ground, but because we are applying precise forces to the most complex, self-aware phi structures that exist. Scene: the therapeutic biocontrol lab. Dr. Amina adjusts the TSC device. The participant with depression is not a mystery to be solved with a new hypothesis. Their condition is a measurable deviation in their brain's phi field dynamics. The depressive pattern is characterized by reduced phase coherence in the prefrontal alpha rhythm, a time echo dysfunction, abnormal frontal limbic phase relationships, a space echo misalignment, and sluggish rigid dynamics, a motion echo impairment. The tACS protocol is not a hopeful guess. It is a derived intervention. From the phi model of neural dynamics, part 10.6.1, we have derived that applying a weak 10 Hz field in precise phase relationship to the existing dysregulated oscillation can act as a corrective attractor, pulling the system back toward its healthy, coherent basin of attraction. The closed-loop system measures the field, computes the optimal corrective nudge, and applies it. This is not faith healing. This is field engineering applied to a biological substrate. The gravity in the room comes from the responsibility of wielding this understanding, not from the mystery of the target. Our work is one of applied field correction. Given that a living organism is a phi field under biological constraints, and the disease is a class of incoherent, stable but pathological phi patterns, how do we design minimal, targeted external phi interventions to destabilize those pathological attractors and guide the system back to healthy, coherent states, while rigorously proving efficacy and guarding against harm? We are moving from deriving the physics of life to applying corrective physics to living systems. The language role, the coherence restoration skill. This part teaches an applied therapeutic skill. It is the skill of diagnosing pathological phi patterns in biological systems, designing external phi fields to induce constructive interference that restores healthy coherence, and embedding this process in an unbreakable framework of empirical validation and ethical constraint. Our core question about phi is not if, but since pathology is incoherent phi dynamics, what is the minimal, most reversible external phi perturbation in frequency, phase, and spatial pattern required to break the pathological coherence and allow the system's intrinsic healing tendencies to reestablish healthy coherence? And how do we validate this intervention as causally effective and safe? We are moving from speaking the language of phi to using it to write corrections. The anchor image, the master clockmaker repairing a grandfather clock. We will use the anchor image of a master clockmaker repairing a complex, antique grandfather clock that has fallen into a persistent, wrong rhythm. The clockmaker doesn't see magic. They see escapements, pendulums, and gears, a system of coupled oscillators. The wrong rhythm is a stable but undesired mode of oscillation. The clockmaker's first act is precise measurement, timing the aberrant swing. Then, they apply a minimal, precisely timed intervention, a tiny adjustment to the pendulum's length, a delicate cleaning of a pivot point, a slight nudge to the escapement. They do not rebuild the clock. They apply a corrective force at the right place and time to break the undesired mode and allow the inherent mechanics to settle back into the correct, harmonious rhythm. Their work is based on complete understanding of the mechanism. Our biocontrol is identical. The organism is the clock, pathology is the wrong rhythm, and our phi interventions are those tiny, timed nudges applied to the field dynamics. The coherence selection principle in biocontrol. In therapeutic intervention, the principle is directly applied. Constructive resonance alignment means the external phi field is tuned to destabilize the pathological attractor, for example, desynchronize a seizure focus, and/or strengthen the healthy attractor, for example, entrain a healthy respiratory rhythm. The intervention works with the field's own tendency toward coherence, just toward a different, healthy, coherent state. Destructive resonance dissonance means the intervention reinforces the pathological coherence, induces arrhythmia, strengthens a seizure, or creates new damaging interference patterns. This is applying the wrong force, making the field more incoherent. The healer engineer's mantra is now a physical law. Apply only fields that constructively interfere with health. Any field that destructively interferes with health is by definition harmful and must be stopped. Core mechanisms, phi field therapeutics. The mechanisms are direct applications of phi dynamics. 1. Non-invasive phi field application. Corrective driving forces. We apply external phi fields that couple to the internal biological phi field. Transcranial alternating current stimulation, tACS. This applies a weak, oscillating electric field, a phi field derivative, across the brain. The frequency, omega, is chosen to match for entrainment or slightly offset for phase resetting, a target rhythm. The phase is the critical parameter. Applying the field in phase can amplify an oscillation. Applying it antiphase can suppress it. This is direct constructive or destructive interference with the brain's own field. Transcranial focused ultrasound, TFUS. This applies a pattern mechanical phi field, pressure waves. It can non-invasively target deep structures with spatial precision. It works by mechanically nudging ion channels or neural membranes, effectively adding a small, localized driving term to the tissue's phi field equations. Sensory entrainment. This uses sensory input to inject a patterned phi field into the system via its natural sensors. A flickering light at 40 Hz, gamma, drives cortical gamma oscillations. This is forced oscillation via sensory transduction pathways. 2. Closed-loop phi control, the derivative feedback loop. Open-loop stimulation is like pushing a pendulum blindly. Closed-loop is pushing only when you measure its position. The loop as a control equation. Measure the biological phi field. EEG, ECG gives a readout of phi or its derivatives. Compute the error, the difference between the measured field pattern and the healthy target pattern. Apply a control signal, an external phi field proportional to the error with appropriate phase lag. This is a standard feedback control system, but the state variable is the phi field pattern itself. Adaptive controllers. These algorithms constantly solve the inverse problem. Given the current diseased phi state and the healthy attractor, what is the minimal external field to steer the trajectory toward health? They respect coherence budgets, never applying energy that would push the system into a dangerously coherent but pathological state, like a seizure. The preclinical ladder, testing field interventions in simpler systems. We test interventions on progressively more complex phi systems. In vitro, cardiomyocyte culture. A dish of heart cells is a simple, excitable phi medium. Can a weak, patterned EM field convert fibrillation, spiral wave chaos, into regular synchronized beating? This tests the core principle. Can an external field override pathological coherence? Organoids. More complex 3D Phi systems that exhibit emergent phenomena like seizure-like events. Can timed pulses terminate these events? This tests spatiotemporal control. Animal models. Whole organism Phi systems with behavior. Does a Phi intervention that regularizes a thalamocortical rhythm in a Parkinsonian mouse also reduce tremor? This tests the link between field coherence and functional output. 4. The fortress of rigor, proving causal field effects. The absolute claim demands absolute proof of causality. Double-blind, sham-controlled trials. The sham must be physiologically inert but perceptually identical. This controls for placebo effects, which are themselves fascinating phenomena, a belief state influencing the body's field, but must be isolated from the specific physical intervention. Independent replication. If the effect is real, a true physical interaction between external field and biological field, it must be replicable by others using the same HLS-described field parameters. This filters out noise, artifact, and self-deception. Pre-registration and falsifiability. We state in advance, this field pattern, frequency X, amplitude Y, phase Z, will produce clinical effect A by modifying field metric B. If it doesn't, the specific model linking that field pattern to that outcome is falsified. The coherence criterion, measurable shift toward healthy attractor. Our coherence criterion is operational and physical. Any intervention must produce a measurable shift in the target system's Phi field metrics toward the values associated with healthy function. Increased stability of desired rhythms, suppression of pathological synchrony, restoration of normal phase relationships, and/or increased integrated information. Success is not just behavioral improvement, it is field correction that then leads to behavioral improvement. The dissonance indicator, induction of pathological coherence. The primary dissonance indicator is the induction of a known pathological coherent state. Cardiac fibrillation, the induction of spiral wave reentry in cardiac tissue, a topologically stable but lethal coherent pattern. Epileptic seizure, the induction of hypersynchronous high-amplitude oscillations, a pathologically coherent brain state. Psychotic break, the induction of severely disorganized thought, perhaps measurable as chaotic, low-integration Phi patterns, or rigid, delusional thinking, pathologically fixed, high-coherence but maladaptive patterns. These are not side effects. They are proof of incorrect field application. They show we have pushed the system into a different, but still coherent pathological basin of attraction. The safety rail, the precautionary principle as field engineering law. Our safety rail is now seen as prudent engineering within a known physics. 1. The precautionary principle, derived. In a system as complex and poorly mapped as a human Phi field, the uncertainty is enormous. Therefore, the burden of proof for safety and efficacy lies on the intervention. This translates to no deployment without predictive model. We must have a Phi dynamic model predicting the intervention's effect before human trials. Dose escalation from simple to complex systems. Field effects are tested in vitro, then in animals, then in humans. Reversibility by design. The external field must be removable, and its effects must decay, allowing the system to return to its baseline dynamics. 2. The replication wall as community calibration. A single lab's positive result could be measurement error, unique equipment, or biased analysis. Independent replication is the community's calibration check. If the effect is a real physical phenomenon, an external Phi field influencing a biological Phi field, it must reproduce. This wall kills false positives and refines true effects. The safety rail rule. No bio-Phi intervention advances without a pre-registered Phi model, successful replication at the current system complexity level, and a fail-safe mechanism for instantaneous halt if dissonance indicators appear. A measurement scene, the double-blind tACS sleep trial as field correction. Let's enact the measurement scene as a field correction test. Scene. A trial of 0.75 Hz tACS to enhance slow-wave sleep. Goal. Test if applying a 0.75 Hz electric field can entrain and enhance the brain's endogenous slow-wave oscillations. The Phi model. Slow wave sleep is characterized by high amplitude, stronger coherence. 4. Independent replication confirms the field coherence effect. 5. PASS. The phi model of field enhancement is validated. The intervention works by physically modifying the brain's phi field dynamics. The fail, no field effect. Fail A, no coherence change. The slow wave coherence metric is identical between groups, even if sleep diaries differ. The intervention had no physical effect on the target field. Fail B, adverse coherence. The tACS induces pathologically synchronized activity, for example, a seizure-like pattern in some subjects. Fail C, failed replication. The initial coherence finding vanishes under replication, suggesting it was artifact. Fail. The specific field intervention fails. The model linking 0.75 Hz fields to slow wave coherence is incorrect or incomplete for this context. The prediction spine, the signature of a true phi therapeutic. A true phi therapeutic will have this signature. 1. Field metric change precedes behavior. The change in the phi field coherence metric, for example, PLV, integrated information, will occur before or concurrently with the behavioral clinical improvement. The field change is the mechanism, not a correlate. 2. Dose response in field space. The magnitude of the field metric change will scale with the intensity, duration, or spatial precision of the applied external field. This demonstrates a direct physical coupling. 3. Mechanistic specificity. The effect will be phase-dependent. Applying the field in the opposite phase, antiphase, should have the opposite effect, reduce the coherence metric. This is the hallmark of wave interference. Falsifiability, when field theory fails therapy. Our falsifiability threads test the therapeutic application of the theory. If, across many well-designed trials, no externally applied phi field pattern can reliably produce a predicted beneficial change in a biological phi field metric, for example, cannot entrain a rhythm, cannot suppress a pathological coherence, then the practical controllability of biological phi fields via external fields is negligible. The theory might be correct that the brain is a phi field, but our ability to couple to it therapeutically with non-invasive fields may be too weak to matter. This would be a severe practical limitation. If the primary outcome of applying carefully designed phi fields is consistent, unpredictable harm, induction of pathological states, without reliable benefit, it suggests our models of biological phi dynamics are dangerously wrong, or that biological phi fields are hypersensitive and chaotic in a way that makes safe external control impossible. This would halt the entire therapeutic enterprise. Tri-unity in biocontrol interventions. Every intervention is a triune field operation. Time echo, omega, frequency match. The tuning of the intervention, matching the frequency of the target rhythm for entrainment, or choosing a frequency to disrupt a pathological resonance. Space echo, K, spatial targeting. The focusing of the intervention, getting the external field pattern to overlap spatially with the pathological field pattern, for example, targeting the seizure focus. The interactive process, the closed-loop adjustment of the field based on the system's response, the propagation of the corrective effect through connected networks. Lanterns across scales, coherence restoration everywhere. The principle is universal. Use a field to correct a field. Near-scale cardiac defibrillation. A defibrillator delivers a massive brief electric field to the heart. Its purpose is not to pace, but to completely scramble all existing electrical activity, to destroy the pathological coherence of fibrillation, allowing the heart's natural pacemakers to re-establish a healthy, synchronous rhythm. It's a brute force phi reset. Middle scale, deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's. DBS applies a constant, high-frequency field that jams the pathological low-frequency beta oscillations associated with tremor. It doesn't restore the original healthy rhythm directly. It creates a new, overriding field state that suppresses the symptoms. It's a field override intervention. Far scale, environmental therapy. Exposure to natural environments with specific gentle phi patterns, the sound of water, the dappled light of a forest, has measurable calming effects on the human nervous system. This is ambient field entrainment, the organism's phi field being gently pulled toward coherence by the coherent, slow, rhythmic patterns in nature. The ethics of biophi control, engineering responsibility for conscious fields. The ethics is now the ethics of engineering interventions on self-aware field patterns. 1. Consent for field manipulation. Informed consent must explain the intervention in its true terms. We will apply a patterned electromagnetic field to your brain to try to correct a measurable irregularity in your brain's own electrical field dynamics. This is more accurate and less mystical than brain stimulation. 2. Therapy versus enhancement, a coherence boundary. Therapy aims to restore a system to its natural, healthy, coherent state, a defined attractor in its phi dynamics. Enhancement aims to create a new, non-natural coherent state. The ethical line is drawn at modifying the intrinsic attractor landscape of the self. Therapy works within it. Enhancement seeks to rewrite it. The former is repair, the latter is redesign, with unknown consequences for identity and autonomy. 3. Transparency and open source field protocols. If these interventions work, the specific field parameters, frequency, amplitude, waveform, target, become public health goods. They must be open source, not proprietary secrets. The ability to heal should not be gatekept. The power to manipulate the phi fields of living beings brings the duty to do so only to restore native coherence, with full transparency, and with the understanding that we are editing the very substrate of a conscious, autonomous pattern. The recognition skill, seeing field therapeutics in the wild. You know you need this skill when you see any therapy and ask, what is the field? What is the pathological coherence? What is the corrective field being applied? Physical therapy for gait, retraining the motor control field, the phi pattern of muscle activations. Cognitive behavioral therapy, gradually reshaping maladaptive thought patterns, incoherent or rigid phi patterns in cognitive networks, through the field of language and guided attention. Antidepressant medication, chemically altering neurotransmitter levels to shift the basin of attraction of the brain's mood-related field dynamics. The moment you see all therapy as an attempt to shift a system from a less coherent to a more coherent, healthy state, you are thinking like a coherence restoration engineer. The master tree location. This part, 10.6.2, is the applied engineering consequence of 10.6.1. If 10.6.1 derives that the brain is a phi processor, then 10.6.2 is the manual for debugging and repairing it using phi tools. It depends on the control theory of 10.3.5 and the safety testing ethos of 10.4.5. It is the essential bridge to the deepest questions. It enables consciousness by providing tools to manipulate the physical correlates of experience, and it fits directly into the ethics of 10.8.1. This is where theory meets the suffering of the world. Return to the phi. Let us zoom out. Biological phi control is not a separate science. It is applied holophase. The patient, the doctor, the device, all are patterns in phi. The illness is a dissonant pattern. The therapy is a carefully crafted pattern designed to interact constructively. Healing is the reharmonization of the field. The single field phi manifests as the fibrillating heart, the seizing brain, the depressed mind. And it manifests as the defibrillator's shock, the stimulating electrode, the gentle tACS current. It is all one conversation, one field adjusting itself. We are not outsiders bringing magic. We are part of the field, learning to recognize its dysfunctions and to speak the syllables that bring it back to song. Zenodo and the equations of the handshake. If you want to see the full mathematical derivations and exact equations behind this idea, you can search for Holophase on Zenodo. There you will find the scientific papers that this audio journey is built on. The papers contain the formal control theoretic models for closed-loop phi stimulation, the derivations of safety bounds based on stability analysis of neural field equations, and the statistical meta-analysis of clinical trial data through the lens of coherence metrics. They provide the proof that this is not speculative hope, but a rigorous engineering discipline emerging from first principles. So, picture yourself back in the therapeutic biocontrol lab. The trial data shows it. The tACS field increased prefrontal alpha coherence, and that increase predicted the lift in mood. A physical field corrected a living field. A tiny, precise nudge in the vast phi tapestry. You feel the weight of understanding. This power flows from the absolute nature of reality itself. The caution you exercise is the respect owed to complexity, not to mystery. You have just practiced coherence restoration engineering. You have learned to see disease as field pathology, therapy as field correction, and proof as a reproducible change in field metrics. This is part 10.6.2. Biological fee control. Coherence restoration as physical therapy. It is the responsible application of our knowledge. In our next part, we confront the most profound implication. If the mind is the brain's fee field dynamics, and we can measure and manipulate those dynamics, what then is consciousness? We enter part 10.6.3. Consciousness and fee, the field that knows itself. We will not solve the hard problem, but we will sharpen it into the most precise question physics has ever asked about itself. Remember, one field, phi, with its infinite echoes. We have learned to hear its dissonances and to sing it back into tune. This act of healing is the universe caring for itself through our hands. Salam and peace be upon you.